So my name is Lizzie, Lizzie Downsy. Everybody, not everybody, most people like already know me. Welcome again to another session. And for as many of us that has been keeping up with the Designer Developer series, thank you so much for staying through. If you're in our last session, we spoke about the introduction to collaborating with designers and developers, how it would improve our workflow, help us not to hate each other, help us to understand each other better, and the likes. And this is the second part of this series, and we're deep diving into design systems. All right, and we have our speaker already here, but before I bring him up, I'll just do some little intro. Okay, so we have Uche is a senior developer. All right, it's going to be our guest speaker for today. You know how a lot of us, I know that every one of us designers, we know what design systems are, right? We hear it every day, we talk about it every day, but not a lot of people understand it from the developer's point of view. We just know that, oh, when you want to create your design, you have to create a design system and then you follow it, blah, 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 you get. But we don't really spend time to think about developer's perspective. How would the developer translate these systems, or how would it look like, or what does it mean to them in their own point of view for them to build this beautiful product that we are building here. And Uche is going to be helping us see this point of view so that it will help us improve in our work system. So Uche has over 9 years of experience as a full stack developer. If you have been following our events, you will know that we don't bring half-baked people. We bring seniors, we bring people that knows their onions to come and enlighten us. Yeah. And Uche works for both local and foreign organizations. Like I said, is into full stack development. He writes TypeScript, React, Vue.js as front end, and Node.js and PHP for back end. So before I bring him up, I'll just do some intros. Should I call names? Who can tell us what you understand by design system? What do you think design system is? Anybody, just say anything that comes to your mind. Let's keep it engaging. Dorcas, do you want to share? Crown, do you want to share? Alima, Balikis, do you want to share? Anybody? Design system. What do you think it is? Oh yeah, you people should talk. I know practically a lot of people that are yes, so don't you just be shy.
A system that guides design.
Yeah, thank you. Who else wants to pop something in? I like what he said. Design system, a system that guides design. Design system, system that guides design. Nice. Crown, do you want to help us?
Oh yeah. So I would say that a design system is a collection of components, elements, and other things that builds up a particular design and makes it peculiar to it. So more like that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Components. Okay. Who else? Dorcas. Let us hear your voice. Alima. Balikis. Daring. What do you understand by design system? Okay. So design system, like everybody said, Crown, you're right, Kimini is right. And I'll just use a term that has not been used, like a library. Okay, it's a library of components that guides our design work. Okay, So you know how we develop designers, rather we just go straight to our Figma file and then we just start designing. And then when we learned about design system, it shaped the way at which you approach every project, because before you start a project, you have to create some guides. And that is what this design system is. You create a style guide and then you build it fully into a design system. Okay, and we have a lot of design system open source. We have the material design system. We have practically big companies. We have Netflix has their design system. Spotify, Apple, everybody they have their design system, and we have open sources to this design system that a lot of people can access to start a project. And there are a lot of resources out there whereby they tell you that you don't need to start a project from scratch again. Here's an open source library that you can start your project with, and you see everybody diving into it, customizing it, recustomizing it in order to fit their own project. Now, what does a design system entail? Anybody, what does a design system entail? What are the components that we want to see in a design system? Who wants to go? Anybody? Halima, Oluwatosin David. It's good to have you. All right, I'll just go straight into it so that we can bring our speaker up. So, one of the things that we like to have or that should be in a design system is, I'll just make a list. Colors. Your colors, very important. Typography, very important. Icons, very important. Whether you build the icon by yourself or you use any of their iconography libraries is very important. Inputs in different states, the default states, the success states, the warning states, error states. We have buttons in different sizes and states. We have toggles and switches. Okay, we have tags, we have drop downs, checkboxes, avatars. Yes, you have avatars in different types, whether the avatar that will take an image or the avatar that will take just the initials, and in different sizes. Okay, we have progress indicators, we have sliders, modals, and dialogues, right? How the dialogue is going to be on the project, where the button will be either on the right or on the left, the heading, the text, you know, the modal, the opacity of the modal. All right, we need to set all of those things from scratch, from the beginning. Tables, illustrations. In a big organization, they might have an illustrator who will create illustrations that they will use for the project. And you will not see them go outside of that. They will not go to the internet to go and bring in another illustration. If they need an illustration that is not in their library, they just have to create it, to fit into their brand identity. All right, we have paginations, charts, like there are a whole lot. I've mentioned quite a number of components and there are plenty. And you cannot sit down one day, except you are using an open source that already exists. You cannot sit down one day and just create a design system just like that, right? It takes planning, it takes structure, you understand. And after you have created this library, okay, there's you have to be strict in following it. I mean, you have called something a guideline. You don't want to go outside of it, right? So you have to follow it strictly. You don't go outside. I don't want to go too much into details because our guest speaker is going to be diving into the usage and all. So I'm just like introducing us into into the topic so that we can get ready. Okay, so you want to be strict, not to be strict in following these guidelines that you have set. Every project needs a guideline. Okay, whether you are designing for a pet project as designers, whether you are doing a pet project or you are doing a project that will be launched to the market, right? You have to already know how to discipline yourself to follow guidelines. That is what brings the consistency, the neatness, the consistency and neatness that you want to achieve. A lot of us go outside um see other people's project and you are like, oh, you love it because it's clean, it's consistent, and all of that. You know, it's not just by mouth. It takes discipline to follow through. You understand? It takes discipline to follow through. You don't want to just design, you start creating something, and then all of a sudden you just go and bring something else in because it looks fancy to you. You understand? Or because something looks good to you, just bring it in and then just introduce it from nowhere. Okay. So without much ado, I'll be bringing up Uche to to the podium to come and take us through this, right? Uche, again, like I said, for those of us that went here before, Uche has over 9 years of experience as a senior developer, and he has worked for both local and foreign organizations. He's a full stack developer, and everything that he's going to be saying today, if you have your notepad, if you don't have your notepad, please get your notepad ready. If you don't have your laptop close, please put it, like, get it closer to you so that you can see what a design system is from developers perspective. I know that most of us that are here, we are designers, but at the same time we don't think about the developers point of view when we are creating our design system. In fact, when we are creating our designs, we don't spend time thinking about what the developer is going to go through, how they are going to implement it, and all of those things. Do they need it? Why do they need it? Because it's not only for us. Design systems are not meant for we designers alone. You understand? They aren't meant for us alone. They also need a coherent library that they can work with. So Uche, please help me give him a lot of claps, emojis, and the like as I call Uche forth to come and take us through this workshop. Thank you so much, Uche. The floor is yours.
Oh,
Maybe
hi everyone. Thank you very much, Lizzie. Can we all hear me, please?
screen.
Yeah.
Can we hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Thank you very much once again for having me. This is my first time being in a group of designers. As I'm seeing, the only person I know here right now is God's plan. I think everybody here is a designer, and I'm scared because, well, let me not say the one that they're going to beat me or look for me tomorrow. All right. So good evening. Let me start with this. Please, if there's any developer here, can we just signify? Okay, Darren is here. Darren is a developer. Aside Darren and God's plan, anybody here? Developers. Crown, Crown. I think I know Crown. Maybe
Ekemini is a
anybody
developer.
else?
Ekemini is a
Okay,
developer.
it came in. All right, all right. So probably just four of us against the whole world right now. That's fine. Good evening once again. My name is Uchechukwu Prince Onwulu. Usually known by, or I usually go by Uche.php. Forgive that title. When I started tech in general, way back, I started with PHP as a language. But then, I think along the way, I wasn't enjoying what a lot of the front end devs were doing on my team. So I transitioned into the front end space because I'm like, I'm giving you guys endpoints and you are not doing the best of what I'm giving you. So I got angry and said, hey, you know what? I'm going to go to the front end. Let me see what's really hard there. And then, I stayed there because I actually like seeing things and bringing it to life. And yeah, all through the way, I've done backend, done mobile development. So I've done some projects on mobile using Flutter as well as Kotlin. Not much on Kotlin, but more of what you call this other mobile language. Also on the front end, I use Vue.js and I use React. I started with Vue.js, but a lot of time the job opportunity has pushed us into doing React. I do some bit of backend as well using Node.js and also Python. So I believe I'll be able to guide us through this design system with my experience along the way, working with a lot broad more teams, and also personal goals of mine. I also have to give a disclaimer, please. I do not know everything, so please, in any case, I might be wrong with what I am saying. You are welcome to correct me. I'm not the author of any knowledge that I'm about to give. Most of it comes from experience, most of it comes from work and my research as well. So if at any point you feel something I'm saying doesn't really go well with you, you're open to give us your own opinion as well. All right. That said, Lizzie has started very, very well by introducing the topic. Um, we are going to be delving into design systems. I'm about to share my screen. Give me a second. All right. Can we see my screen, please?
Yeah.
Is this an interactive class? I think only Lizzie is speaking, and I'm seeing no less than 13 people here.
Yeah, I can see your screen, or
All
whether I
right.
can see
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, you can make them. Please, we require everyone here to speak as long as you're in this class. It's beneficial to gain one or few things and ask questions where necessary. I'm going to make this class as simple as possible to the designer, so it's going to be more designers focused than developers focused. Please, developers, forgive me if we're looking for something more hardcore. I would say we'll have a different workshop some other time where we can do more of development and codes. All right, so let's get into it. So today we're going to be talking about design systems, and I've created a bit of a slide just to be able to explain some of the things I'm going to be talking about. And also, we're going to just delve into a little bit of code. Maybe we'll see something to just do a comparison so that we don't have too much to go about because I don't want to break the designers here and make them feel like this is just coding session. This is not much of coding session. All right, so overview of design systems and the importance in tech. And here we have a definition which says the design system is a comprehensive set of guidelines, principles, components, and assets that help create consistent, user-friendly designs across a product. Now, Lizzie has explained a bit of this, or maybe giving us more insight into this. It's everything that constitutes the product. A design system can represent itself as a brand identity. It's just like how we see GT Bank. Now, anyone would know that GT Bank's color, if I can do that research, you can once whenever you see this color or even this logo, with the icon like this, you just have a sense of GT Bank. The same thing with Facebook. If I'm correct, I'm not really that much on Facebook. Facebook's color, it has this blue, and I think it used to have the F sign. So it's speaking to us. They've been able to create something of an identity for themselves to say wherever you see this. It's the same thing when you look at cars. When you see a Benz logo, you know this is a Benz. When you see an Audi logo, you know these things give off an impression already for you. That's why a lot of people will say when they have money, they're going to buy Benz because it screams expensive. So design system is sort of like an identity that is consistent across board. You won't see for most of you who understand cars, you won't see a B2 car. I don't know if you people know what a B2 car. Let me see. B2 car. If maybe, yeah, you won't see is a result of this, a B2 car like this, and you would say it's a Benz. If I tell you that, this is a Benz, at first you'll be thinking like, no, I don't think this looks like a Benz because Benz does not create cars like this. But when we search things like, Benz, automatically you would start to see things that, oh yeah, this has an impression of being expensive. So that is a little bit of what design system does. It creates kind of like an identity. It gives things such as colors, things as reusable items that when we see outside, we can just say, hey, this pertains to a particular brand. This pertains to GT Bank. This pertains to Facebook, or this pertains to Twitter or X as it is. Now, the key elements to take when building design systems are reusable UI components. These are pre-built elements like buttons, forms, navigational menus that can be easily integrated into different parts of the product. Now, when we talk about reusable UI components for designers, please, we're talking about building elements that we don't have to always rebuild every time you make a new page or you make a new part of the app. Let's say we have a home page. Okay, maybe even to this talk, I will be using a reference sample of a Figma design to also give us some samples just to put that in view as well. But say you are creating a website for a company. The company has a home page, it has an about page, it has a contact page. Now, when you create the landing page, you are definitely going to have home, about, contact, and some other links as such. When you are done creating that page and you have to create the about page, you are not going to then start using a different menu at the top. You're going to likely use the same menu that was present in the home page. And that infuses consistency, that infuses reusability. It's more of like I shouldn't come to the about page and start wondering, am I still on that company's website? And that's reusable UI component for us, the developers. We have things also like buttons. If you're going to see a button, I'm trying to pick up. Okay, let's use can anybody give me a website if you know any that we can use to just sample these products or sample these ideas? I want us to pitch in. Somebody please.
Carry space stack.
Okay, page stack. Lizzie, you shouldn't be pitching, please. You're already good at what you're doing. This is for learning purpose, please. All right, look at Paystack's websites. If we take a look at it, you will see that there are a lot of elements here that seem like they just reused it, and the only thing they did was to change the content within those elements. Take, for example, something that is very, very clear here is the button. Look at this button, create free accounts. Definitely the same thing that we can see here. Definitely almost the same thing that we can see down here, which says accept cookies. If I hover over this button, you see it has a little bit of movement, if you can tell, and also the color changes. And I presume that that will be the same when I do this, when I hover my mouse here. This to tell you that they have a series of buttons. There's a likelihood that they have a series of buttons that they use in their websites. They don't want to create unlimited amount of buttons. Now that is design system for you. We want reusable UI elements. This button is reusable. We can use it to tell people create an account. And if I probably go down, I'm just looking for maybe another button. If I will see, okay, awesome. This is another button, still with the create free account. And so they've used this to create something of a brand for themselves. As you can see also, when I click that button, it took me to a new page that has that same button, but it is sort of grayed out because it is inactive. Now, this is also, sorry, somebody's mic is on. Please let's mute our mic when we come into the meeting. Thank you very much. So that is for reusable components, building forms, building navigational menus, things that can easily be integrated into different parts of the product. Design principles and guidelines. So we're talking about rules and standards for how design elements should be used, ensuring a consistent user experience. Rules and guidelines for how, let me read that again. Rules and guidelines for how design elements should be used, ensuring a consistent user experience. Rules and guidelines. That's to say, if we are going to be talking about using a particular font on this page, we should be able to limit most of our font. We shouldn't be using sans serif here, monospace here, and using maybe lazy fonts here and the other here. We have to create a set of guidelines, especially even within these reusable elements. What if my text here was going to be so long? What are we going to do about it? These are things we talk about during brainstorming of design systems. This text right now says create free account. What if which I don't expect Paystack to do this thing that I'm about to do. I'm about to just do something as a developer. I'm just saying, what if this text here, instead of create free account, say it's create free account, and I just have multiple create free accounts here. Look at that. Look at the text. Do you see how the text breaks somehow breaks this whole UI? Now, this is just me being playful with their sites. But when you come to thinking about design and your UI, you are tending to think, okay, what if my developer has to create a new component, has to create a new part of the UI, wherein the text in the button is going to be this long? What are we going to do about it? At that point, there will be different suggestions. We could say, hey, we don't want this text to be this long. Let's create maybe something called an ellipsis. So when the text is about maybe 20 characters long, we're going to put an ellipsis. I believe we know what an ellipsis is. Does anybody here not know what an ellipsis is? I mean, this is also a uh, learning place. So an ellipsis is something like this, where you use three dots. Three dots give the users, please mute your mic. Three dots gives those who are visiting your product an understanding that, oh, there's a possibility that there is more text here, but because we don't want this text to grow beyond what we are seeing, we have to cut it short. And all these considerations go into the design system, and that's talking about the principles and guidelines of these things. Style guide as well, documentation, this is wrong, sorry, documentation of outlining specific details like typography, color palette, and spacing. Now, at the end of the day, when you, the designers, create your design system, you're going to have to give it to us, and you're likely going to write a documentation about it just so that we can understand. Because you won't just create a patch of colors somewhere and say, these are colors. You won't create some type of topography and drop it somewhere and say, these are topography text, or buttons, these are how you use your buttons. You are going to have to actually make something called a style guide. And to this note, I will be sharing this page for us. Can we see my screen here?
Yes,
Can
I
we
can
see my
see it.
screen? Awesome. So now this is a Figma file for my web development team that I'm actually mentoring. Weekly we have, or not weekly, rather monthly, or sometimes quarterly, we have projects where we do. And that's there, I try to give them different Figma designs just so that they can get familiar with these designs and how to, inspect the elements on Figma and be able to bring those things to life, replicated rather, how they see it on these designs. Now, this is one of the projects I've got from front end what's that called? Sir? Front end mentors, I think, or what's their name? Now, this design, as you can see, it has a design system, as they will call it, but I will call it a style guide because, like Lizzie said in the beginning, a design system is not a small pack of items. It's actually very large. Before you get your company to say, "Hey, we have a design system," you would have iterated the design. Sometimes you would have built the product for over a year because you are going to be building new features, and within those new features of the product we are going to be building, we're going to be seeing different cases where we can use or not use things. So for now, let's think about this like a style guide as regard to a design system, being that a design system has a lot more. Now, within this style guide, I believe we can see my screen. I want to move this to a bigger screen. Okay, pardon me, everybody. Let me quickly stop my share so that I can move my screen to a larger screen. Stop sharing. Just give me a moment. I want to move this screen to a bigger screen. So, right. So I am going to be sharing the screen again. All right. Please tell me we can see my screen still. Can we see my screen?
Yes, I think
All
so.
right. So now we're on a very larger screen, so just so that I can get a very wider view with my eyes. Please forgive the tabs on the top. That's how I work. I don't know how to just keep one tab open, so don't be scared. Yes, my system can take it. That's why I bought the laptop. It should not. It has to use the money. All right, so now we have something we're looking at here, a design, and this whole style guide, let's call it as such, is what we'll be using to be able to create these items that we see on the screen. As we can see from a Figma part of things, this is just a design wherein it has like two toggle systems, a light mode and a dark mode. And this all this does is for usually for developers who understand these things is we type in a username here and it will bring the user out, the user's detail out here. So one of few things which is a major feature here is that we should be able to toggle the UI to give us a representation of this dark mode as well, just like we have the light mode here. And as you can see, if you take a look, very closer look at these colors, let's say these colors, you will realize that every color represented on the right has its specification here. Let me drop this link in the chat for those of us that would like to play along with this. Open chat. All right, so that is the Figma link out there for those of you who would want a closer eye to what I'm doing, and maybe those who want to try it themselves for other developers as well. So now getting into it and following our talk here, style guide documentation, documenting of outlining specific details like typography, color palette, and spacings. Now, as you can see, there is a color palette here, and the colors are not even up to 10 colors, if you can tell. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, okay, 9, 10. 10 colors. As regards to building maybe a system that has hundreds of colors, there is a topography as well here. And as I spoke about, documenting these things. Now you can see that this designer was very good to help us and say, hey, these are colors and these are all the colors in the system. And helped us to say, if you want the hex code of the colors, you'd use this. If you want the RGB, you'd use this. If you want the HSL, you'd use this. And then the designer went on to give us the typography that is available in the system, helping us to say, hey, you have, we on the HTML or the front end side of things, we have headings of H1 to H6, but he or she chose H1 to H4, citing the highest, which is H1, at a font size of 26 pixel and a line height of 38 pixel. And body here is just a regular text of the body, like even if we don't declare anything, it's going to have a body text of 15 pixel and 25 pixel line height. So you can see that this designer didn't do too much, but has been able to give us a little bit of style guide and also interactivity on how these elements would look. Like, okay, so this is going to be the search bar when nothing is being typed in it. And when anything is being typed in here, this is what it's going to look like. Who can tell me something they notice from these three states? I mean, they are designers here. I need I need answers, please. These three states, what do you notice?
The degree of elevation in the design, like an effect there, and the states of the buttons are quite different.
Okay, who is speaking? That's Darren.
It's Fate Okolo.
Oh, okay, sorry about that. Faith Okoro, thank you very much. So you said there is a degree of what now? Come again, please.
Elevation, like an effect, drop shadows rather, and the buttons and also the elements are showing different states. One is when it's
Okay.
default, one is typing, when there's an error, and all of that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much for that input. So as you can see, it's giving you the different states of what happens when the item is idle, when the user starts typing stuff, and also when there is no result, or maybe there is something wrong with the results that you searched. As you can see, when the user hasn't even typed anything, the button is very, very blue, meaning the button is active. You can click the button. When you start typing stuff, the button is great to tell you you need to finish typing before I can probably, come back blue. And when I don't find any result, that means when I'm done typing, I probably clicked the button when it was now blue and there was no result. It means this goes back to gray because I don't want you sending more items to me, or rather communicating with the backend when this particular result that you're trying to get has no result in our backend. So it will be futile if you just keep clicking search when I'm telling you that, hey, there is no results for what you're searching. So thank you very much, Faith. So as you can see, the designer has given us a little bit of style guide here, also with the light and the dark mode. And the only thing for this is that it just changes the text when it is on light or dark mode, and also um, the hover styles as well. Now back to our talk here. Documentation, clear expectation, and examples of how to use the design system's components and guidelines. So we just saw it. Clear explanation. With this thing you've seen now, for me as a developer, the designer doesn't have to say, hey, Uche, when you click on that button, it's supposed to be this color. When you do this, it's supposed to be this color. Now, this is not very broad, but this is enough for me, for a developer who understands how UX is meant to be. Let me put it that way. So I can tell you that when you've not even done anything, this is going to be very blue. When you start typing, it means, when you start typing, I shouldn't make this blue. I should grade this out to tell you that you can't click this button probably till you're done typing. And maybe I'm going to use something on the front end, something like set timeout, or who can remind me this low dash package, one of these low dash package, just to be able to see that the user has stopped typing for some seconds. Then maybe I can make this button blue to let them know they can now search for the item. So that is what this particular line is talking about. Then accessibility considerations. Now, when we are building design system, a lot of you designers do not take into account that we have a lot of partial or impaired users on our products. There are people who are blind. I think there was a there was a talk. I don't know, Lizzie, your own um was it your own one of your workshops? We had a blind person come to give a talk about how they use products. I think in one of the accessibility talks. We had a blind person who actually came on the talk without any guidance from anybody from their home. His webcam was on, I think, that day, and he was telling us he uses his laptop. He browses, he surfs the internet, and a lot of people were shocked, and they're like, "How?" But these things were made possible for because of accessibilities that we, the front end developers, had to make available for him. But even with making those accessibilities possible, we have to work in line with the designers. Now, if the designer is making this product and this is very blue, it would be there is a way these screen colors affect impaired users, people who have eye defects or have light sensitivity problems. And to that state, we even have systems like these that have light and dark mode or even themed modes. Okay. We have systems like these that even have themed mode. Right now, we only have light and dark. You go to some systems and you realize that you can change it to red, blue, different colors, as such. And that is a full design system. So that if I have problem with looking at white screen, I could change this to a gray screen. I could change this to a dark mode. I could change this to a red theme, and thereby all these things would help me to be able to assess your product and be happy to stay longer hours on that product. Remember, everything we are trying to do is to make sure that we keep our users intact to our products. All right. Any questions so far? Please, if you have questions, raise your hands or signal so that we can take that. Now, the importance of design system for developers. Now, I'm going to be speaking on these aspects to you designers to understand why we need these things. I've already talked about reusable components. It enables developers to use pre-built UI components. Now, imagine if tomorrow Facebook hires me Remember, Facebook has been there since I think 2006. That is a long time for a company to be alive and to still be working. Now they tell me that, hey, you are going to be working on the front end of Facebook's code, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. I've seen Facebook's design, when I browse, but now I come in contact with the code. There is going to be a lot of code, because imagine this product has been undergoing maintenance and scalability for as far back as 2006. So many things are going on that if the designers in Facebook have to say, today we are building a new friends list page, and now that we're building a new friend list page, we are going to be creating new designs. Imagine that they've been doing it that way since 2006. It means that Facebook is going to have over 1 million design screens. Over 1 million. Now think about what that is going to do to we, the developers. Immediately we come and they just show us the Figma file with 1 million designs going on. My brother, my sister, like, even if it's the best, the most senior devs, they are going to drink Panadol on that product, because they're like, homepage alone has 50 screens. About page alone has 100 screens. Like, it's going to be challenging to understand what is going on, because it's like the designer wakes up today and is like, God told him, hey, my brother, my sister, I think you should make that page blue. And the designer is, yes, I'm going to make it blue. So you see that Facebook will not have something called a brand look. You will be able to look at a site from far and say, this person, there's sometimes when you look at some people when they are working on their phones, you don't have to squint your eyes too much to say, this person is on Instagram, this person is on TikTok, because there is a look, there is a feel, there is an appeal that has given them an identity for you to know that, this one at TikTok. It's just like TikTok sound. If you hear, is it TikTok? No, it's not TikTok. There's a particular app I think people use to draw videos out of Instagram or some other sites. When you finish watching the video, you get something like dun, like it just show the person's username and then the is it Instagram icon or TikTok icon. That particular sound automatically has started being allocated to that particular product. So if we, the developers, come to a design file and we see that there is a lot of screens there, automatically we start getting the notion that there is no reusable component. Now, this also helps with code consistency, fosters code consistency with shared UI pattern and component. So if I'm creating, where's that Paystack page? If I'm creating a new page, maybe Paystack says, hey, let's create a new page for sellers who want to create a new page for sellers. Automatically, I know that I'm not going to go and be creating new buttons. There is already some buttons that the Paystack developer has created. I will just go there, they will just be like, okay, these are all our components. And when I talk about components, this button is a component. This navigation is a component. Components are set of things that are pre-built so that we don't have to keep rebuilding them every time. All we just do is change the content inside. Those are what components are. So me, who is the new front-end developer in the team, I will just go look for the button component folder and I'll say, oh, they will say this is the button component folder. I'll just code there, drag that button to where I want to use it on the page or however I'm going to copy the code, and then just change the context within. Maybe change the text or the picture inside of it. Now that is what we're talking about with code consistency. Easy maintenance. Now, your design system definitely helps us maintain our code very well, because just as you have done a good job keeping a design system or a style guide or a design system just like this, we the developer will have set of files where we store these things easily and know that if you come tomorrow and say, hey, I want to change the color of this blue from this to red, we will just go to one place in our work and change that thing only, and it will affect the whole millions of files that we have. So you see that, if you do a good design system, we too also do a very good part in keeping our code maintainable. Better collaboration. Yes, developers can follow the designer specification guidelines more closely, and this facilitates communication and collaboration between designers and developers. Now, to this particular stage, I would also let you designers know, whenever we developers start a new project, most of the time we do not build this project from the ground up. Most of the time, we use frameworks, UI frameworks. One of the UI frameworks would be Bootstrap. For some of you designers who know, this is just a library that helps us build write code very, very fast. And if I have to go through some of the things that Bootstrap have, let's just say the buttons. As you can see, I'm on the dark mode. I don't know if anybody here has a problem with the dark mode, but let me do this instead. Now, as you can see, I did not have to write code for these buttons to look this way. There, I just have to copy these codes and probably change the text within. So when we are creating projects, we sometimes do not create projects from the scratch and start trying to build all these things. Sometimes we use UI libraries like Bootstrap. There are other UI libraries like Tailwind here that I already opened. So Tailwind here is also like Bootstrap. I'm trying to look for colors. Tailwind here is also like Bootstrap. It has a set of no, what's happening? Sorry. It has a set of what happened? I was looking for colors. Okay. It used to paint these colors. Okay, yeah, there it is. So Tailwind is a utility first class. It's a utility first UI building component library. So it more of like helps us where we need to, use things that we don't want to write code to build ourselves for the UI. So as you can see, all these things are colors. And if I scroll down, keep scrolling down, you see a lot more colors, red, blue, and the likes. So most times I would say a better part of your collaboration with developers is to also ask them, are you using a UI library? Now, when you ask the developer, are you using a UI library, it fosters that collaboration first because, like I said, a lot of developers are not building these things from the ground up. They are using UI libraries. So when you ask me, am I using a UI library? I'm like, yes, I'm using Bootstrap. I would give you the link to these UI libraries. Yes, a lot of times it is annoying for you to come and read all these things, but you should come to things like components here on Bootstrap. You would see how some of these things are not so that they guide your own, or rather not so that they disrupt your own thinking style of how you want to build the work, but it's going to help you understand that there could be set of colors that these UI libraries provide. Can I use these colors to build the work? Or when I go through all these things, I would say, hey, my guy, this library that you're using is not going to work for the idea I'm trying to use for this product to bring it to life. That way, the developer will abandon these things. Because if I install Bootstrap as it is right now, and Bootstrap has a color like this, let me see if I can get color and background. Yeah, and Bootstrap has this color for blue. And maybe within your own building block, your own type of blue is this particular blue that's in this overview. You see that there's a conflict. It means that me as a developer, I am not going to be using Bootstrap blue. And then that means I'm not going to be using a lot of elements or components or utilities that Bootstrap is giving me. It means that I've just imported a UI library for nothing. I will just be importing a UI library that is probably going to be taking space in the project that we are not even using up to 50% of what it offers. And mind you, this UI library doesn't just come with colors. It also has things like spaces. It also has, look at it, it has navigation bar and the rest, how these things work and the rest. So I'm not saying that you are supposed to look at these things to now say, let me build the work in specification to these. No, it's to say you want to see what these things offer so that you can now say, okay, oh, my guy, I've seen this library. If I'm going to create a list item, I'm going to create it looking like this with the spacings that is within, but I am not, maybe I'm going to modify one or few things. And that way the developer knows how to go into the configuration file of these UI libraries and be able to tweak one or few things. And that's what we're talking about here with better collaboration. Developers can follow with the designer specification and guidelines more closely, and this facilitates communication, collaboration between designers and developers. Because if you're building one thing and I'm using the UI library, that's why you have a lot of developers that you tell them that, Oga, I gave you this design, but you are not, what you built does not look like this design. That's because the developer is using a UI library, and in his mind, he's like, Omo, this designer just there on their own. Like, if you like, give me this blue, I'll go and use this blue. If you like, tell me this spacing is 20. I'm just going to use the UI library spacing so that I use everything that is within the UI library so that I don't waste my time as well. Consistency ensures a unified look and feel across all digital products. We've talked about that. So when you're creating things like the color, create limited things, create spacings that actually make sense, maybe to the library. You know, you want to think of your spacings like maybe a multiple of 4. Remember, we are developers. We are not just front end developers. We are developers. We are here to solve problems, not here to create problems. So, in essence, what I'm trying to say is, if you are going to talk about the spacing in this product here, let's look at this now. If I'm going to say what is the spacing between this element and here is 44. Now, I want you to take a look at this because there's an error I spotted out here. Look at this search button now. You might think this search button is even on all sides till when you start to inspect the spacing. Look at that. It has a padding top of 12.5 pixel and a padding bottom of 13.5 pixel and a padding left of 24 and a padding right of 23. This is, for me, I would tell you that this is inconsistent. Like, why is this button not even in the center? Now, this designer who built this file might not have taken note of this or might not be focusing on this majorly. But me, the front end developer, will look at this thing and automatically I'll just tell you that this designer no way know what they do. Because looking at this button now, we would think that this button text is centered perfectly. And if I think it's centered perfectly, I might just come here and say, okay, what is the distance between here? If I don't look very carefully and I just say, okay, what is the distance between here and the top? And I just say, oh, it's 12.5. And I just go and say, okay, I want to believe that all round is 12.5. Meanwhile, when I build my work, it would not look like this button because the spacings, as you can see, are not evenly displayed. So these are part of the things that the designer and the developer would have to talk. I would be able to call you, the designer, to a halt and be like, hey, guy, this button where you do, the spacing no dey even, because if I don't bring that to your notice to be sure that you did that purposely, when I start viewing my work for everyone to see, they will say, guy, this your button does not look like the button on the design. Even the designer will say the same thing. Meanwhile, you thought that it was 12.5 pixel all round, but maybe the designer did not also know that they made that mistake. So you see, we have to work hand in hand. So we have to be sure as well that you are doing a good job on your own end. Scalability helps organizations maintain consistency as they grow and develop new products. So as you can see, when Facebook decides to build Facebook 2.0 or maybe some other type of Facebook junior product, maybe Facebook for kids, they are going to be using a lot of utilities, a lot of components, a lot of design from Facebook 1. So they're just going to be saying, hey, we have buttons that we're using on Facebook, just go and bring all those things in, because companies don't want to go into stress themselves. Everybody knows them as Facebook with the F. Why are we can just say Facebook Kids, maybe F, and just put subscript Kids. That way, when people just see the F, they'll be like, is that not Facebook? Oh, but it's saying F Kids. So maybe it's Facebook's product for kids. Already you are pointing something out there, and then this already you are seeing is helping them with scaling their product. So they will not need to add too many things to build a new product. If GT Bank is going to do a new GT innovation product, they are just going to carry their brand colors and be dropping everywhere. They are not going to create new colors, or they might create new colors, but they won't do too much in doing all these new creation. And like I said, brand identity helps reinforce and maintain a consistent brand identity. All right, I think I'm speaking too much on these, and I just want us to go into a little bit of workshop to see a little bit of what I'm talking about and see how you help us, how you, the designers, help us with front end developers. So now I am going to still be using the design. I have dropped the design link on I believe we can all see my screen, right? So I've dropped the design link here. Does anybody have any questions so far? Is that a
Question?
question?
No.
All
That
right, let's take question.
Okay, I have a question.
Okay.
go on.
Okay, so I wanted to ask, how do we know which items to make as components? Like especially in the design, we have different things, the cards, the this. How do we know which one is supposed to be a component for developers?
That is a very good question. I like that question, Faith. Now, anything that seems like you are using it more than 2 times already is a component. This button,
Hmm?
okay, did I? Okay, let me take that again. Any item on your work that looks like it is going to be used more than twice is already a component.
But when we are designing it from scratch up, we don't really know. It's when we are proceeding. So we have to like be
Yes,
paying attention to all of those things too.
yes, that's why I said that you are the designer.
Hmm.
You're the one bringing the idea to life. I can't really tell you what the component is fully, but you also know. I believe that within Figma, if you're going to use this particular color, you can't say if I'm going to create this button again somewhere down here. Are you, the designer, going to say you are going to write that same color? Will it pay you rather to write that same color multiple times every time you are creating this button? Or would it benefit you to have somewhere where you'd say, hey, color one, and you just put in that color. So when you need it on this particular area, you just click it like a preset and it just says select color one or color two. Do you understand my question, Faith? Would you feel happy if when you want to create this button a second time, you just maybe collect all the elements of this button and put it in something or a label, and when you create the next button, you just click and say you want to use the properties of that label? Or would you prefer to keep rewriting it like a new thing every now and then?
Mm. Okay.
Good. That's to tell you that the moment you are going to use something twice, it becomes a component. Now, let me take your eyes into this. This, as you can see, do you see this search input? It is a component. Why is it a component? Can you tell me something specific from the example I just gave that made it a component?
Well, we're using the button and the text and the the elements inside of it. So yeah.
Look deep. You haven't got it right. Like I said, something you would use, and it seems like you're going to use it again within the element. That's something like a style within it makes it a
Apart
component.
from the drop shadow effect.
Thank you. As you can see, this particular guy has a drop shadow there, and that drop shadow seems to be the same here. That's to tell you that we are not creating a new type of drop shadow. And I'm sure if we inspect this, let me see. If uh, if we inspect this, look at the drop shadow. Yeah, show that. Good. Look at the drop shadow here. Now take a look at these properties, and this is 0, 16, 30, 10, just to keep an eye on that. And let's take a look at this one, 0, 16, 30, 10. So you can see like the designer is not creating two different drop shadows. And already, if you take a look at the border radius of this particular item, look at the border radius here, 15. What is this one here? 15. That's to tell you that this box on its own is a component. It's like saying you are going to create a box. Maybe you can call it a box as a component name. And then that box will have a property of border radius and box shadow and drop shadow, like you called it. First, we call it box shadow. Two properties already are consistent across board. So we, the developer, we are going to create a component that we are going to probably call container that has a box shadow and has a border radius because it is going to be used twice. So why will I not create one thing once and use it multiple times. Period. Now, the spacing might not be the same inside the element. So, yes, I'm not going to count that. I am just going to count that I've created one container that has a box shadow and has a border radius. That is a component. And as you can see on the design interactive elements here, you can see that he or she separated out this one here. Yes, for us to maybe see some other things going on with it. But just to let you know that this is a component which is reused twice. The content of the component doesn't matter. All you should know is that this is for we developers, we will see this as a component.
Mm. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, do you see another one? This is supposed to be interactive. Is it only Faith that is in this class?
Please, please, I would
Please.
like to add before you move
Okay.
past this question, and I also have a question that I also want to drop in into this conversation. But before then,
Okay.
to add to your answer to Faith's question, she said, "How do we know that this thing is going to be a component?" All right, and you have answered it just like right. I just want to answer her from like a designer's point of view. So let's say we are creating a landing page, or not even a landing, or an app, yeah, for instance, and in the while you are concepting, you have drawn your wireframe and realize that, okay, this particular section will have this kind of layout, and then we'll put a text or a form. We'll bring in a form somewhere around here. All right. So you created the landing page. You remember how landing page usually form the foundations of every website. Now you've created the concept of the landing page. Each sections, they're okay, they're bam. And then you now want to create another page, which is the about page. While concepting,
Mm-hmm.
you now realize that there's a that form, that section that you created a form for, you need it also in the about page. As a designer, what do? We just go to that landing page and go and copy it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then we transfer it to the about page and then modify. Now that form or that layout, it's in a sense because you have reused it a second time, and there's even tendency that you might still use it again, then that is a component. You understand? So I'm using like a form as an example because in the chat somebody said like a form or like a button. Yes, a button is a component. A form is a component. Dialogue,
That's
right? Dialogues, because you use dialogue in a modal, and you can't tell from the beginning. You might not really be able to tell that this will be a component because you are concepting. You understand? But the moment you start creating, and that is why design system is not something that you build in one day. It is something that it is you build for a number of, like, when Uche started this his session, he said that for you to have a current design system, you might have built the product for up to like a year. Yeah. So for you to call this a component also, you would have like need to use it more than once. And once you have it more than once, it has to be a component. You know how we used to create a section in our Figma file for colors, but we have to create another section where all our components are built as well, because they're also going to be inspecting it and be saying that, okay, this is a component, this input, they are components, this button, this form, this dialogue, this opacity is also a component, because that model that has that maybe 35% opacity, you are going to use it in another model. Are you sure you want to log out of this app? Yes or no? That thing comes out in a model, right? And then another way you say, are you sure you want to rename this file? Another model. Um, would you like to delete this, or something like that? All those confirmation models, they reappear more than once. So those
mm.
are components. And in that component, there are different elements of components in it. The dialog has a button, yes or no. Yeah. There's a
Yeah.
component inside a component. So those are components. I don't know if that's like answered.
Yeah, it makes sense. It answers it.
Sure, okay, alright. So any other person with question before I ask my own question?
You want to ask me a question?
Yes, I just want to throw the question in and
Okay.
let's any other
Yeah.
person. Okay. So when Uche was talking, you mentioned UI frameworks like the Bootstrap, the Tailwind, and the likes, right? How you developers, you guys already sort of like know the framework that you want to use. So my question is, should the designer also like is it a must for the designer to know the framework that a developer will be using? Mind you, some developers they don't usually know the framework they use until they start the project. And some would have already decided the framework even before the designer starts work. So how do we manage this?
Okay. That's a very good question. Um, I would say number one, first to answer something you imputed, if a developer is going to use a UI library that they've never used before, they shouldn't bring it to the designer because the designer will have questions and they will not be able to answer it. So that's already a flawed um, project because the developer will just not be able to help you. And I don't expect the designer to go through everything on that system. Now, for this particular use case, I said it's better the developer lets the designer know that they are either using Tailwind, Skeleton UI, Bootstrap, or whatever, because there are some things I would call utilities that I feel the designer should either use from that UI framework or not. Now, these utilities are things like spacing. Now, take a look at Tailwind, and I say Tailwind because I like Tailwind. Sorry, let's use margin. We use margin and padding a lot in our projects. And if you go through this with me, you will understand that Tailwind has captured like margin spacing of a lot. Now, the M0 is trying to say margin top, bottom, right, and left. Margin MX is just talking about margin left and right. I'm not trying to teach you people so much on this, but you'll get the concept of what I'm talking about. So, but from margin 0.5, as you can see, it already represents 2 pixel. 0.5 here, Tailwind has allocated it to 2 pixel. 0. Let me see another one. 1 here already represents 4. If you look clearly, you would see it goes in like a multiples of twos, 2, 4, 6, 8, let's see, 10, 12, 14, 16. So if I tell you that, hey, I'm using Tailwind, I would want you to come and see utility. And like I said, not the components that Tailwind or the Bootstrap offer, utilities. Utilities are things like color, things like spacings, that's margin and paddings, things like box, like shadow. That way, if you are going to create this UI design, you would have it in a sense that, hey, Uche is using Tailwind, and I should maybe, since he's using Tailwind and Tailwind comes with a lot of component UI or maybe utilities, it would be unfair for him to import Tailwind in the project, and Tailwind maybe carries, like just verbosely saying, maybe Tailwind takes about 10 MB of the project. 10 MB is a lot actually. Maybe 2 MB. Let's use 2 MB, 2 megabytes of the project. Now take an understanding to know that in this whole tech in general, everything we build has space allocation to it. It means that if I'm done building the project with the pictures you uploaded on the Figma sheet, with the colors, with the type, with the fonts, with the spacing, with every other attribute that I might have used, such as UI library, all of them make a spacing of the project, which is maybe 10 MB or 20 MB. 20 MB is a lot, 10 MB is a lot. The project is supposed to be less, like maybe 2 MB or such. When a project, I'm going further now, please bear with me. When a project is like 2 MB, it means that maybe resources that I'm using from the project are not in a folder of the project. They are maybe shared across CDNs. CDNs are content delivery networks. Maybe I uploaded this picture here to somewhere, one drive online somewhere. I uploaded this icon to somewhere. So you see that if I'm going to download your assets, I'm going to upload it somewhere so that when I bring them up, my project will not be so heavy because people are going to be pulling these things from different countries. So it will be serving them in a content delivery network close to them. Now, if the project is heavy, it already means that anybody that is viewing the site is going to be slow. The site is going to be loading forever. One of the things that make the site load forever is the styling. And the styling is the CSS or the UI library the person used. Now, pay attention that when we use things like Bootstrap, Bootstrap is a very heavy UI library, just to show a little bit. It has a compiled style and it has a source file. If you're dealing with a developer that doesn't know understand what he's doing so much, he might come to download the source file, not teaching you so that you teach the developer how to do his work. But I'm saying that he will download everything the UI library brings. And now he says he's ready to do the project. And now he comes to your design and he checks this, or let's say Tailwind now instead of Bootstrap. And now he checks this, and now you are having 12.5, 23, 13.5, which Tailwind does not give me a spacing of 13 or 13.5. Are you seeing where I'm going with this? It means that I am not going to be using any of these things that Tailwind is giving me. I am going to have to create that style. Where is my code base? I am going to have to create a CSS just to clear this. I'm going to have to create a CSS called maybe let's call it spacing 13. I'm going to have to create a CSS called spacing 13, and maybe I will allocate that to margin of 13 pixel because I can't use what Tailwind is giving me. My designer used 13 pixels, and Tailwind does not have 13 pixel as an asset. So I'm going to have to do this. Meaning, I have imported this UI library from Tailwind. It has added space to the project, maybe 2 MB. And now this CSS file, yes, if we check the space, the CSS file might just be 1 kilobyte. But if I don't use a lot of things that come with this UI library, especially in terms of utilities, and I start creating margin 2 pixel margin, 5 pixel margin, 10 pixel a lot, and I create a whole long file of this, it would be bulk already. So these things are going to be adding to the project space. And that is why I said that it is necessary for the developer to say, hey, I am using Tailwind. Now you the Figma design, you the UI designer would just look for the utility classes. I will give a list of utility classes. You can also go online to Google to check utility classes or utility items for web development. There are things like spacing, color, typography, what more? These majorly are the utility classes, because you realize that if you target spacing correctly for the developer so that he can use his UI library appropriately, he will not create this file at all. He will not create this file at all. You would have solved a bigger part of the project, because now border radius, all those things, Tailwind is giving me also. If I check, you see border radius. Tailwind has a set of border radius, and like I said, they come in a multiple of twos. So it's just to guide the designer and say, hey, as you're building the project, I mean, if you can make this a multiple of two, you can. The designer here would have said, okay, this is going to be 12 pixel, and maybe this is going to be, as this is 24, this is going to be 24, and this is going to be 12, just to say a little bit of thing, just to guide the designer so that I don't stray away so far from the UI library that I'm using. So Lizzie, I don't know
Okay.
if you got my point there.
Yes. So clarify for me. So when we're talking about colors, we're talking about state colors because the project already comes with its branding colors.
It's
So
colors.
we are talking about state colors, the warning, the success color, the errors, right?
Yes.
And when we are talking about utilities, we are talking about the spacing, the margin,
Yes.
the
Border
shadows,
radius. the shadows,
Shadows, border
exactly.
radius, the opacity,
Exactly.
and the likes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I just want
Yes.
to put that out there for everybody to all right.
Yeah. So, all right. All right. Thank you very much. So that is just a little bit of summary of more of the talk and everything. So, in essence, what I'm trying to say is that designers, please have it in mind that we don't want to build projects where when we come and inspect. Now, another thing I have to say rather, if you take a look at this project, you will realize some consistency with colors and font size. If this is going to be the biggest font, let me know that is the biggest font, because it will be crazy when I come to a landing page and we all know that a landing page has to have the biggest font to introduce you to the page. So I want to believe that when I come on this GT Bank website, this is going to be the biggest font. Likely. This is the biggest, like something to introduce you and say, welcome. If that is not the biggest font, and then you have the biggest font somewhere down on the page, it means you have also not helped to put an important fact straight into the user's face. So if you come to this one, you will realize that for topography, this designer has told us that H1, we know H1 is the biggest. And I think every UI designer is meant to know these particular things, especially when it comes to some of these utility classes. H1 to H6 is available in HTML. P tag is available, and maybe let's put it that that's all. H1 to H6 represents the headers, and headers are important things, like things you want to bring to the user's face that this is important. And headers also represent section titles. As you can see, this, if I inspect this now, let me believe Paystack, which I believe, look at that. It uses H1. That's to tell you, like, hey, this is important. This is the biggest font size in the project, H1. And if you check, if I have to do this for you to see, this is a font size of 48 pixel and a line height of 57.6. Now, what was I going to say? Yeah. Now, this already gives the project a definition. Like, okay, this one is now 26 pixel. This guy here is 15 pixel. This guy here is 15 pixel. You see consistency across board. This one is 13 pixel, meaning that it is smaller. What's this one going to be? 15 pixel. So you see, 15 pixel is like a body to say, hey, if I'm not going to style anything that is majorly important, or I need to reduce the caption, let this guy just take a particular font size of 15 pixels. So it was more of like organized here to say, hey, body has a font family of monospace. Monospace is a Google font and it's 15 pixel. I would also say, please, designers, when you do your work, if you can, try to make use of fonts that are in places that are hosted. When I say places that are hosted, I mean things like Google Fonts. If we come to fonts .google.com, you would see that Google has a lot of fonts. And the benefit this gives us is a benefit of using things in CDN, like I spoke about earlier, whereby I don't need to download these fonts. I don't need to store these fonts in my on my system, because look at this now. Okay, no, I didn't want to download two, but look at that. I downloaded two fonts and they come with a spacing of 9 MB. Okay, maybe 9 MB is like the zipped. I mean, zipped for 9 MB. That's crazy already. Like, that's just crazy. 9 MB is too much for a zip file. Let me bring it up. Let me say this is what I downloaded here, and let me just say if I open it and check inside. Uh, I don't even know how to check file size for Mac, funny enough. But going back to it, we can see that this has a 9 MB spacing for font size alone, which is ridiculous. Why am I keeping a font size of 9 MB in the project? Automatically, it will tell you that when the site is loading, the font is going to load slowly. Except I have a very strong internet or a very fast internet, that font is going to load slow. It might load the last thing on the project. Like they might not see the font that you gave me till the whole project loads out, and that's because it's heavy. 9 MB is a lot. So when you have these fonts on places like Google Fonts or other library fonts that have these fonts, it enables me to say, instead of me, let me remove this, instead of me downloading these fonts, I can say, hi, I want to use Roboto, and I go to get fonts. And all I will just do is just get embedded code. And this is all I will be copying as the developer for my own sake. When I copy this, it means that Google itself is hosting this font somewhere in their house. And all I'm doing is I'm getting a reference to this font. What does that mean for me, the developer? It means that Google is going to take the headache of making sure that this font loads fast on my system. Period. That is just a major trade-off than downloading that font to my laptop. So these ones, we downloaded 2 fonts. It was 9 MB. Let me just see how many this one might be. Might be lesser. This one, 8 MB. So even Roboto itself was the heaviest. And before I used to know that Google Fonts used to give us the ability to pick the stylings we want as regard to just taking everything here. I think they used to do it before. I don't know if they still do that. Yeah, I'm not sure. Before they used to allow you pick the parts of the font you want. That way, maybe the font could be less in size. So Roboto, yes, is heavy. There are other lighter fonts. Yes, I know that, but I'm just giving you that this is one of the trade-offs for us on the front end. So yeah, that being said, any more question on that? I'm just going to talk about one last thing. What's wrong with this?
Before you go to
I'm
the
just going to.
last thing,
Okay.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
this particular session is actually like an eye opener. Yeah, because I know that a lot of us designers, we never even thought that the developers even think about the MB. You understand? We just do our thing like, where's it from? Where's it from? Oh, download this from here. Oh, do this. Oh, I'll send it to you. Oh, or you see somebody using a particular font and you're like, is this the font I gave you? I mean, it's just for you to download this now. I
Uh-huh.
mean, you just download it. And you get like, because these are some of the things that causes the issues between a designer and a developer. Like these are some of the things, and that's because designers, we don't know the kind of things that these guys think about. Now look at him calculating space. Who would have thought that space or MB, 9 MB is going to be an headache for somebody, something that you didn't think about. You just did your thing and then you just expect them to do it. Meanwhile, they are thinking about much more things. Oh, do I have to include this 9 MB into this thing? And now I have to cater for this site loading as fast as possible. And then the designer on the other end will be saying, oh, this website is not loading fast. It's not this thing. Meanwhile, it is your fault and you didn't even know you know so I think it's actually a very enlightening session. I hope somebody is learning and uh learning something from this session. If you're learning something, please, I want to see your reaction. Please put your reaction in the comments. Let's know that somebody is getting something from here.
What's with this eye thingy? I beg you. All right. Okay, thank you guys. Thank you. Okay. So another thing I should say, now that I really brought this to light, is your images, designers. Please, I think God beg you people.
Somebody is raising their hand.
Some
Sorry.
okay, sorry. Let me let that person go on. Yes, go on, please.
Sorry, that was a mistake. Please, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Oh, okay, okay, no problem. Now, another thing is images. Designers, please, we developers, we take God beg you. Let your images either be SVG or be very, very less sized in terms of what we are downloading. most of the time your images, if I have to get the elements from all these things that you have put, and I say, okay, I don't want to go and use some icon outside, and I want to download your icon, I would want to download it as SVG, because SVGs already give us high definition, whether we zoom in, as you can see, whether we zoom in or we zoom out deep, it's always clear. PNGs are usually not clear, but PNGs usually carry a lot of weight. So please, if you are going to be using PNG, JPEG, whatever it is, try to make sure that these things are low resolution, not really low resolution, like low in sizes. And maybe use things such as Web and WebP. WebP is actually, as you can see here, WebP is a modern image format developed by Google, designed to provide high quality images with smaller file sizes than traditional JPEGs and PNG. So this scales very, very, very well on the web for us. Like, very, very well. It gives us almost the same, almost the same, what will I call it now, as the same value as SVGs. So please, designers, I think I'll beg you, when you're using, oh yeah, one more thing that developers don't tell you. This, I know Lizzie knows about this one. This is an icon. Maybe you designers have some icon set somewhere in your laptop that you like, this search icon. But we developers, most times when you give us this project and we look at it and say, oh, this icon is a song, this icon is a search, we have repositories online where we go to collect icons. For React, I think we have something like Lucid, is it Lucid React and Lucid icon? Yeah. And no, sir, is it no Lucid React icons rather? React icons, we have something like React icons that gives us a borderline library of a lot of icons. So if I'm looking for search icon and I come here and say search, look at it. There's a truckload of search icons. Now, I do not know, or I think Figma has a way of integrating some icon libraries into Figma. So a very good part of your work with developers would be to say, hey, are you using any icon library, or would you like to use any like icon libraries that is free? Please take note that it has to be free, because if you use something that is paid and it works on Figma, I might not have access to it. Things like, I think Ion Icon, I'm not sure if it's free. Yeah, some things might be free. As you can see, me, the developer, I could come here to say I want search. And when I search, see, it gives me a couple of things. And if I want to use all these things, I might use this particular one or this one. And then when you look at it in your in the project, when I give it to you, you will then say this icon is not the same. As you can see, it is not the same as this icon. Okay, maybe it looks a little bit the same if I think about it, because I mean there's a curve down here which it has a curve here, but okay, let me try something else like this one now. I mean, the developer, I could go and use this one, but as you can see, this doesn't really have a curve shape at the bottom. So when I present it on the work, it won't necessarily look like this guy. So all I'm saying is, as much as you could use SVGs or pictures to do some of these icons, you can take a look at, maybe you talk with the developer and he tells you the library he or she is using, and then you just go to the library and pick some of these items and see if those libraries can be fused as plugins into Figma, so that you just, there's feather icons, like all these things are the name of the libraries icons, and you just fuse it into Figma and know that, okay, whenever I am using icons, I'm picking icons from feather icons. And when the developer comes here to do a search, I'm just going to look for search. Look at it. This is search on feather icons. And when I click, it looks like this. So when you use it and I go to this library and use it, we are not going to have disparity in our work at all. Shikina. If not, it means that I will have to download this as SVG, which another trade-off again is that using icons from these libraries is also doing the same thing Google Font is doing. They are hosting this picture of these icons on their own side there. All I'm doing is importing it. or they would have done some magic on their own to make it slim, to make it less size, less sized icon. And all I'm just doing is taking it. I'm not stressing the project. So please, this is another thing to take note of. If you want to work on these things, try to see if there are libraries that you can easily check online and tell the developers, hey, I'm taking icons from this library, so you can find a way to infuse these into the project as well, as regards to just coming here and downloading this as SVG or PNG or whatever. It makes more sense to know that my project is not filled with a folder of images that are heavy. Or maybe when I look at the folder of the images, I'm trying to bring up one project here. Let me see. If I look at the project, I'm not trying to say this project is heavy with a lot of things. So just to take a look at the finished work of this particular project I just showed you guys, not really finished, but I think it was something I was just trying to tidy up. So as you can see, look at this now. I only have one, two, three, four images. And the images I have here are these particular ones here. This location image, this Twitter image, this link that looks like chain, and this organization building. If I try to look for this link, let's see if I will see it in React in this particular thing. Let me say chain, because the developer did not tell me what it is. I don't see anything as chain. This is what I see for chain, which maybe looks close, but it's not. Let me say link. See what I'm seeing as link. This one looks close, if you can tell. This one looks close. Let's do a comparison. This guy looks close, but it is not the same. It's not the same as this guy. So it means that if I go and use this guy and say, I just want to use icon, I don't want to let my project be large. You, the designer, you're going to come and be like, Oga, do you see what I used here? What are you using here? You are going to have that disparity. And that's usually where designers and developers already have problems. Like the developer knows what is good for the project. He believes that, see, I can't keep images inside folder. I can't keep downloading your images. All these images that I think are icons, I can just go somewhere and get it. Let's see location. Maybe let's see if I'll find something near. I'm checking for location. This guy is close. This guy is close. This one looks closer. Okay, this one looks closer. So yeah, this might work. But if we look at it very well, sometimes it might not bend. Like this one is curved concavely, convex, however. But this one looks straight. You look at it very, very well. I have a keen eye to design. This one looks straight, but this guy looks somehow curved. I think in my own line of sight. So if you jam designers or developers I'm talking about here, if you jam designers that want their work as they give it, they will definitely tell you that this icon is not the icon I gave you. I've worked with designers like that. Like one small thing, they tell you this work is not done. And you, the front end developer, you are going to have a lot of headache. That's where you are even just borderline, you're just going to be angry. Because your CTO has told you, go and use icons from this library. I don't want to see image in any folder in this project, except maybe image of the user or images that we need to download as background. But aside that, please don't put images in any folder in my project. And you, the developer, just obey though. But then when you came to do design review in the team to show the work, management now say, why is this one looking like this, and then in the design is looking this way, your work is looking that way. But you cannot even explain, like, my CTO told me, because you don't want to slap your CTO, and your CTO will still slap you for not following the design. So you see, your CTO will slap you, you will come back and slap the designer, and the designer too will slap you publicly there and say, this is not the work I gave him. Oh. Everybody is now angry, and now we're not sleeping that night. We, the developers, will now be very angry. That's why we really like designers. Like, see, let's just be going one way, and so I don't know. I hope I'm drawing some light to some things, please, as to why a lot of front-end developers don't have replica job of designs.
Okay, there's something else that I also want to ask, throw in another question, and it's around these
Okay.
images, right? So, for a lot of designers, I hope we all know that SVGs are usually the best when it comes to icons, image, illustrations and the likes. But when it comes to images, I'm speaking from a designer's point of view now. When it comes to images, right, in as much as we don't want to bore the developer with large files, but on our hand as a designer, for us, for our work to come out well, the image has to be high resolution. And high resolution means that the file size will be big. And with as images like actual image, let's use a stock image for an example, right? SVG will not work on our end. It is a developer that will have to export that image out as SVP. That's one. Not SVG rather, that's one. Then secondly, WBP, that WebP format is actually a great format, but our tools does not accept it in. So for instance, I don't know if Figma does now, but I've not tried it in a while, but I know that for a while you cannot bring in an image that is WebP format. It's either a JPEG, PNG or SVG. It doesn't. So somebody just confirmed for me that it doesn't, right? So now my question is, how do we balance that? Yeah, because if we use a low resolution image because we don't want your file to be too heavy, it's not going to look good on our end. Trust me, images play a vital role in the way a design looks. If it is not clean and sharp, the it's not going to make the design look good. I mean that if you have to go for a high resolution picture that will be very clean and clear, the size will be large. Yeah. So how do we balance that?
All right. Very good question, Lizzie. So, with what Lizzie said, I think for we on the front end, when we get any picture or any image that is a PNG, all we need to do is probably change the file extension to WebP and it will work. So I have this image here and I want to do a test to see if that works the way I'm thinking about it. So if I change this to a okay, before I do that, let me just do it this way. This is our word, and I just want to carry because we're going to be viewing it on the web. I'm just going to carry this guy. No one follow me. He didn't follow me. Anyway, what I was trying to do was to drag and drop, but because I'm sharing screen, I think that feature is not working appropriately. Use WebP. So you see, I changed the format and you can still see the image here. So yeah, it would definitely work for us as well. All we need to do, developers, is to change the file extension from PNG or JPEG to WebP. And remember, this WebP for developers is so that it scales appropriately with a less size on web. Because if these images are heavy, just like Lizzie is saying, where she has to download very high graphic images, it already means that our site is going to be loading like crawl, crawl, crawl. Let me see GT site. You know, it means picture will load when the site load, picture will be loading like as if it's loading game one by one, coming down, coming down, coming down, and automatically you're already losing users because if not me, I go just know say this person will build this site, he want kill me. Like he just want to he just want to eat
My
my data.
data.
Yes, I'm trying to see something. If I'll see the let me show us that if sources um GT. I'm trying to see the file size. I used to know how to do these things back when I started tech there to be able to see the how much space these things collect. But you can see most of all these things. Oh, most of all these things that you can see here, you will see that some of these things they no, these are designers. Sorry. I don't forget. I was talking too much. That's for developers, not designers. So I know there are developers here. Like I said, we'll have a different workshop for our development team. Let's not make the designers have headache. Yeah. So I think going to the final bit of my presentation, I wanted to write a lot of code out here, but when Lizzie told me there are more designers here, I don't want to give people a headache because I know that when designers come into their brainstorming meeting and they start doing their thing, I used to have headache. So I used to repay them back. I had a friend that when they will carry me to do design review and they will say, the girl will call her other partner. She'll be like, see this thing, oh, should be the font size for your system now 15 pixel. The other guy will say like, yeah, so he'll be like, but on this web is 12. I'll just sit down and they'll be doing me like this. So I used to carry them into front end code, and I'll be like, okay, oh, this is your work, and I'll come and start showing them code, and I'll be like, okay, this is what I did here, I changed this one, I did this one, and they'll just be when I finish, they will have headache, and I used to be happy because you gave me headache, let me give you headache. But all I'm trying to say now in this final state of things is your design style guide helps us transition themes easily. As you can see now, this is a light mode and this is a dark mode. If you did not build a good design system or a good style guide, let's use style guide because that's what we're using, you are not going to be able, if you start building a product today and you build that product for as far as 6 months, 8 months, and then the management comes and say, oh, this our product is so fine, why don't we have light and dark mode? Trust me, I am sure you, the designer that did not have a style guide, will already shake. The developer will shake. Everybody will shake because you people have either built styles, you have written a lot of colors, you have written a lot of fonts and their colors that you did not classify or group them properly to enable things like theming. I say theming like light and dark mode. As you can see in this design, if you look very closely, you will see that this here, this is dark on a light screen. This is when they switch. So your design system definitely enables theming. If you don't have a design system or rather a style guide, you are not going to be able to enable theming on a long run. If that product has been built for over 6 months, you will just have to tell management that this is going to take some time because you, the designer, are going to have to go back to the drawing board and start scaling your designs. I call it scaling because you are not going to see a lot of mistakes that you've made, and you're not going to have to be consistent. You are going to be forced to be consistent in your design. The developer is going to have a more headache situation because he would have built a lot of colors, he would have just been creating CSS files and just writing code. He will just come here, he will inspect this element, you say, okay, this element has a color of this. He will write it here as color. He will now say color. He will just come here. He will say color. What's this color? I copy it. I come here. I paste it. That's all. I've collected that color. By the time they tell him go and do light and dark mode, my guy, he's going to exit that project. If it's a big project, you just know that developer has resigned. He will be looking for another job immediately because he would have written a lot of UI styling to enable the design work first, but not considering that there should be a style guide so that when things like theming happens, he can easily just say, oh yeah, I've done theming. And if you look for case such as this, as you can see my screen here in my code. Sorry, can we hear me?
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay, can we see my screen?
Yep.
All right. So I have been able to move the colors here. Who is in party here? I hope it's not my own debt that I'm party. colors. As you can see, I've been able to import most of the colors in the projects here. I use the RGB. I like the RGB because I can set opacity easily on the front end with it. I use the RGB sections to give them something called CSS variables, primary, secondary, tertiary, dark, and the rest. And I label this as a light. There's a better way to do this, but just to explain this so that I don't, the other way is a bit confusing. Just to make each side of our workshop right now understand me. I created a grouping called lights, and I created all the colors in here with a background here. And I created another one called dark. So all this does is that when the system is on a light mode, any text that is using the primary label will be this color, which is this one 0121255. When we switch the theme to a dark mode, as you can see, they are still the same. As you can see in the design, this is having that color of that particular color of this primary. And if you can see too, in the dark mode, it didn't change. This is still the same color here. That is why my primary did not change. But now my text here is this text here is having this color 283442 442 283442. Where is that? Okay, this one, you see, this is another inconsistency issue because this designer did not put this one in the style guide. That's, you see, that's some of the help we can also bring to you guys. We can, oh no, I'm wrong. That's it right here. I also can't lament. That's it right here. And that the color code here is 435266. And if we check for 843, that's what I use here. And I called it dark. But when we are on the other screen, the text here becomes something whitish, FFF, which is likely 255 here. And if you can see, the same label that I use for dark is what I use here. Sorry, I use font color, which is this one here, and then I change it out here. So it enables theming, and if I have to show the project in general, this is really the project in general. And if I switch it, watch now, if I switch this, and where did I do that? Oh, I've already started spoiling this project somehow, and I changed this to a where you are. I changed this to, let's say, a light. Look at that. Now it is a light. It is light, and as you can see, I didn't go and touch anything in the styles. All I did was change a control switch here from dark to light, and you see things change accordingly. And this works easily for me because I have a design system in place here. So nothing changes, just switching things on this control, and everything works accordingly. So yeah, this is just a little bit of, I just wanted to be able to bridge the gap, and I didn't want to write a lot of code on the screen for designers. I hope I've been able to give us some little bit of insight and help us be able to work better with developers, because we're not evil people. You will just like giving us a headache. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Lizzie, over to you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Does anybody have questions? Questions? Any
Mm.
question?
Okay, so yeah, I have a question. Although it's not related to developers, it's more on the design end. So let's say you're working with a company that is just a startup and they have limited resources, and you really, really want to collaborate well with the developers. And to do this, you may need like to have access to Figma Pro Premium and all of that. How do you communicate the value of them subscribing to Figma Premium to enable you to work faster and collaborate better? Because some companies be like, they have limited resources, you should find a way, blah blah blah. How do you go about that? Especially Nigerian startups, they don't see the value. Developers, if developers need resources, they will just want to give them, but from the end,
Ah,
God help us.
stray bullet. That's your question, right? I think, Lizzie.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that I can actually relate to what you're saying. And I think that the startup or the company, sometimes they just want to manage resources. But when it comes to the developers, like you said, they will give them everything that they want. Pay for this, pay for that. But for the designers, they'll tell you, "Ah, we don't have money, we cannot be paying for it, we cannot be paying for it." I think the way to solve that is to let them know, is to show them like the advantage of using the premium version. Like if we have the premium version, this and this will be able to do easier. Look at the dark theme and the light theme that Uche used as an example. You know, there's a way we can do it quickly on with Figma variables on Figma, right? Even if you have built the project before, but if you created that project with variables, you can easily go and create a new node, right, and add the dark theme. And then once you just edit the what's it called now, that palette, and create the dark theme node, right, everything is just set. You just need to switch the toggle, and then you see, just like something just similar to what Uche did with his code, right? You just switch something in your Figma, like a toggle, a drop down, light mode, it changes to light, dark mode changes to dark. You understand? So if they don't see it, if you don't show them, they might not really buy it. So I think we really need to show them the value, like let them see the value. And if they are now like refusing and like they are not going to see the value, okay, tell them in order to do this, it's going to take 3 months. If you are able to wait for 3 months for us to finish it, fine. And if they say they cannot wait, tell them there is nothing you can do. In order for it to be faster, we need to do this. If you can't, then we have to wait. So if they can't eat their cake and have it, they just have to pick one. I think we just need to show them the value and let them make the decision. I'm sure that a reasonable startup CTO or CEO, they want to save time. So if they can pay for it, then what's delaying them? If they're not ready to pay for it, then they should wait. My own point of view, though. I don't know if anybody wants to add to it. Okay. IFA Designs. Faith.
Yes, ma. Yes, ma. Good evening, ma. So I don't know about what Miss Fitukulu said. That name sounds very familiar. I don't know if you know me, if I know you. I really don't know, but I know that name sounds. That's by the way, though. Companies. When you reach out to companies, first of all, you should first of all understand the company that you are reaching out to buy to pay for that
Premium.
package, premium package that allows, yeah, premium package. Yeah, you have to like, if is the company paying for assets, image assets alone? Is the company paying for icon? Is it paying for typography? If companies are not paying for those things, company will not pay for premium. It's not possible.
Then they just have to wait.
Like, they will just have to wait. Like I witnessed the same thing till this afternoon. I still called my C2 out. I still called him out on the group chat on Discord. Say, Alpha guy, you don't want to pay for anything. Just like free work, free everything. There's nothing you can do. So best bet is just manage the entire scenario and wait and be patient. Or you can use your personal money too.
Eh? You say what? I beg go.
I think that's just the best bet. Like if they are not willing to pay, you cannot put your head on the chopping stick for them. Right. So just give them the timeline that it will take. Let them be paying your monthly salary, and then it will take them 6 months to finish the project. It is their choice.
Who is laughing in this emotions? Use your students, I beg. All
Actually,
right, any more questions?
that's one of the things about this GT. All the reactions have sound, and I think it actually makes the session engaging as well. Okay. Does anybody want to say anything again?
I want to ask a question. So good evening, sir. once again.
Is
As a
your name?
designer that knows how to, that also codes to the right front end codes at least. My question is, how do you sometimes, yeah, let's say for example, let me put a scenario to this. So for example, you collaborated with several designers on a project, and maybe when you joined the company, there was a designer there. The designer now did not do design system. We don't design system. Oh. Now you and this company, they are of the idea, they are of the opinion that anytime you design something and then they check out your designs, they like your designs, and then you submit designs to the front end devs to implement the design. You have to monitor the design so that they implement what you do. The former designer, that the main designer of the company, did not do a design system. You are joining the company now. There's no design system on ground, and you know how to write code small as a product designer. You're now managing, you're now designing things like you're borrowing assets from the guy's design. The previous designer, you're borrowing his assets. That yeah, after I need this icon, okay, go my design, you did my design, I beg copy them, use them. Then the developer now that is working on your own product, who is also a new developer, is now complaining that, bro, far where I see his assets from now, I don't get any branch where I feel take collect his assets. How do you manage that entire bro?
He said, bruh. What's your name, please?
My name is Faith. Faith.
Okay, wait. Well, I think I understand this question, and I'll relate it to the first time I met Lizzie and Gary. That was way back in 2020, I think, Lizzie, when I joined the DEMS.
Was it
DEMS was working on a,
or
was it
2019?
not 2019? DEMS was working on a project. I think it was Blowverse. God. To be honest, I joined that team and it was like I wanted to quit being a developer because I think it was John that was the CTO, and John said, "Oh, welcome on board." John did a brief boarding onboarding, and he messaged me. He said, "I have 5 days to go over that code, the code base, and understand it." This was a project they've been building for a year. So when I saw the code base, I already had headache. I did not know how anything worked. And this is also the problem with no design system because even the front end can't create a documentation for the front end. Normally, when you join teams like Facebook, if you go to Facebook today, trust me, there is a documentation for all their work. Every button they use, they will have something like a documentation using something like Storybook JS. They will likely use Storybook JS. Storybook JS gives the availability to say when you are creating these components, you create a documentation so that when a new developer comes, he just goes through these things and understands what you are creating, how they work, the colors used, the limitations, and everything. So if the project has been built for over 10 years, the documentation might be long, but he will not be confused. He will not be lost. So, there was no design system. There was no style guide at the time. Let's put it that way. There was no style guide. It
It
was
was just
just anything.
anything.
Oh. In fact, it was just anyhow. Thankfully, John, them they managed to limit a little bit of the designs to make sure that things were reusable. Now, when you join teams like that and you have full blown knowledge, me being a senior, joining a startup, let me use a startup for instance, that has been a startup for a year, and I come and I see things like this, you should first call it to order. Just like Lizzie said, when it comes to the design aspect, you have to tell them, Oga, this thing you people are doing is rubbish. And me, I am blunt. I'll tell you, this thing is rubbish because I have to now read all of you's code from top to bottom to understand the project. And it is, think about me, the health challenges that I'm going to face
The
from this.
mental,
When you, the,
mental.
the mental strain you are going to put on me. Your developer sat down and created color blue, color red, color green. They were creating till they reached a year. They were all happy. They knew the project. But now these guys have gotten job in Facebook and they left. And now you're employing me to go and read the code and understand the mind of the designer and the developer. So you need to call it out and say, see, this is not the way to do this thing. Have a meeting. They will listen to you. When they see that somebody is objecting what they have, they want to listen. And so you have to know what you're talking about so that they will not ask you question and you go and talk. And you tell them, Oga, this is no follow. You're supposed to have a style guide. Where is the style guide? Fight the designer. Yes. Call the designer. Where is the style guide? The designer let them look dumbfounded. And you be like, there's supposed to be a style guide. Where are the components, the reusable component? Where do you create them for me to know these things that are reusable so that I can group all these things on the front end? Call everybody's bluff. Let them all look confused. Let them be happy that they brought a Goliath. And if they now say, after they have a roundtable meeting, that we have done something wrong, you tell them that you will need enough time to regroup this work with the designer as well. If not, my brother, follow them and be going. And if you like their money, sometimes you join some companies and you be like, I beg, whatever, what the fuck, just enjoy the money, collect the salary, write the color, create multiple component of that thing. Don't reuse, don't dry, don't repeat yourself. Just carry the go. But it will be good. You first make an impression by telling them this is the wrong approach to this thing. First, if they don't listen to you, you go on because they will come back to that bridge and they will remember that somebody said this. And that way, trust me, you get a promotion for that thing. Because if you can even achieve it, but achieving something like that for a company that has been long in the writing of that code, you need holiday. In fact, they should just make it a 2.0 and tell you to take it home and work on it for the next 3 months and make sure the designer does not rebuild anything new. You just work with the designer and you'll be able to achieve it, I believe. So, yeah.
Okay. Faith, hope that answered your question.
Yes, ma, it does. It works. Thank you so much, sir.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Any other person with a question? Our time is fast spent, and I'd like us to call this off at latest 2 hours 30 minutes. So in 10 minutes we should leave here. So any other question? Anybody? Any designer developer question? Any question on design system? I hope everybody understands the difference between a style guide and a design system. Is there anybody here that does not know the difference between a style guide and a design system? Do we understand the frameworks that Uche talked about and the utilities that he mentioned? I'm trying to raise questions so that in case you're not thinking about it. Okay. So I think we are clear. So thank you all for joining. This session, to the best of my knowledge, is a very enlightening one, and it has fulfilled the purpose at which it was created for, right? And the the recordings will be shared with all the resources that we talked about in this session. So I would sync with Uche to get Uche, can we get is it possible for us to get a link to a direct link to any utility for any framework just for us to learn what these utilities are?
Okay, yeah, sure. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a little bit of pitch documents that just highlight some of these things as well. So I'll just send it as PDF
Okay,
for you in the group.
okay, great.
So just give me this week to collate that.
Okay, great. So we'll be sharing the resources. Then I'll also be adding a link to design systems that you can access on Figma. So when you click on the links, it will take you to the Figma community so that you can access those design systems and then you can save them. And then when you have your next project, you can then use them as you wish, customize them, edit them, and then proceed with your project, be it mobile or text or web whatsoever. So I'll be adding that link to it. So you guys should look forward to um to those resources, because after every session we send the recording and then we send the resources attached to the session. So and then in to close this off, the next part of this series, designer developer, the purpose of this series is to bridge the gap between designers and developers. That gap is been years that that gap has been there. You know, the issues, the and everything comes from the fact that we don't understand each other's perspective. You know, the designer is not seeing the developer's perspective, developer is not seeing designer's perspective, and everybody just wants to be right. And designers, you don't want what I designed versus what I got. Developers, they so they don't want to spend time or they don't care, they just want to get it working. It's a developers will tell you, I don't care about design, I just want to make it work. Like, care about the design. That's why there's a designer. You know, you have to care about it. So we're just this series is just like to bridge the gap so that we can collaborate better, build better product. And the next part of this series is going to be handing off, like handing off to a developer, like from design to hand off. Now we've talked about the what collaboration is to both end. We've talked about design system, and even in this design system, we also talked about collaboration. So the next one is going to be handing off. So please, if you are really interested in this series, stay in the group because the next session is going to be next month, and the dates and every other thing will be communicated through the group, just like we did for this one. And guess what? We already have a speaker. All right. So anticipate and see you all in the next session. Thank you, Uche. Please, guys, help me shower Uche with a lot of reactions. Thank you so much for doing. Thank you so much for doing justice.
Surround me with money, I beg.
Thank you so
This
much
person do this hour.
to the topic. You really hit the nail on the head. Like there was a lot of enlightening points
Thank you very much for having
a
me.
lot of us, and really appreciate that. I really appreciate your time and all the time that you put into making sure that this session is engaging. We really appreciate you. God bless you. Thank you all for joining. See you all in the next session. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Uche. Thank you, Lizzie.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you very much.
Ben.
Thank you, ma. Thank you so much, ma.
Thank you, Faith. Thank you, Faith Okolo. Thank you, Toluwa. Thank you, Ife. Thank you, Alima. Alima, we didn't hear your voice. Ekemini. Thank you. Thank you all so much. See you in the next round.